all the excitement of the Hunger Games, minus the dead children. This is the Talkin' Boxing with Billy C show.
Talkin' Boxing with Billy C.
Now let's dig into our archives and hear a rare interview when Billy C first became the champion of boxing talk radio. Hello, Billy C. As the new champ, can we ask you a few questions?
Why, certainly.
Okay, your fans would like to know how you and your corner have successfully walloped the competition.
We're not ordinary people. We're morons.
Anything else?
I'm a victim of circumstance.
Did your success finally come when you made the show 5 days a week for 2 hours? What do you think?
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
Now, please tell the listeners what you've learned from making it this far.
Certainly. If at first you don't succeed, keep on sucking till you do succeed.
Great words of wisdom, Billy C. Keep up the great work as the undisputed People's Champion with your show, Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. Any last words to anyone who's listening?
This is your fault, you bonehead.
And we're back. You're listening to the Talkin' Boxing with Billy C show. Glad you could join us. And don't forget about following us on Twitter. We're trying to get 10,000 followers. We're more than halfway there. So if you're not following us, follow us. It's at Talkin' Boxing. That's TalkinBoxing. Well, it's that time again.
Blast from the past.
We shine the spotlight again on fighters from years past.
Marciano, top ranking. Joe Louis is the leading contender.
Joe Frazier with a left hook. Good right hand thrown by Foreman that time. Look at that left hook. Belt that goes to Ray Mancini.
It's Blast from the Past on Talkin' Boxing.
And this week's Blast from the Past, which is being sponsored by KOFantasyBoxing.com. Check it out, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Features a former world champion, although he's never actually won a title as a champion. We'll get to that a little later. He is a Hall of Famer, heavyweight Ken Norton. And joining me right now to tell us all about Kenny Norton is Alex Pierpaoli. What's up, Alex?
Good evening, Billy C. How are you?
I'm a little nauseous about this Mayweather-Berto thing.
Very upset.
Well, the last couple of shows I've actually been, sticking up for Floyd.
I don't remember ever hearing that.
Really? Really? Maybe I've been dreaming it. I've been. Okay, let me rephrase that. All right. I've been less harsh on Floyd. I have. I've been, giving him some kudos. I mean, and then this gets announced, and I'm just. Anyway, we'll talk about that. Tell us about Ken Norton.
Kenny Norton, yes. This was one of the greats of the 70s, that is for certain. And he, will always be mentioned in there of the that fearsome foursome of the 70s. Ali, Frazier, Norton, and Foreman. And I guess, everybody has their favorites of that group, but I think you probably would have to say that he is probably, in terms of the quality, he's probably fourth, but because he does have that distinction, that odd distinction of being a heavyweight champion who never won a heavyweight title bout. He was sort of appointed or bestowed as champion, but we'll get to that. Yes, he was born August 9th, 1943, and was 6'3", and usually, fought between 210, 220, 230 sometimes. Started boxing late. Didn't start boxing until he joined the Marine Corps, and he joined the Marine Corps in part because he was very athletic, and he had played football. He had sort of a middle-class upbringing in Illinois. I think the city was called Baybrook, Illinois. Yes, I'm sorry. He had been born in Jacksonville, Illinois. I'm sorry. And then eventually San Diego became sort of his adopted hometown, and that was the site of the biggest win of his career, of course, over Ali.
You know, the trilogy of Muhammad Ali seems to be what everybody remembers about Kenny Norton, and rightfully so. It was a great 3-fight series. But he had some big wins against some formidable heavyweights at that time, like you mentioned. I mean, we're talking about what many people regard as the best era in the heavyweight division of all time. But one name that's not on his resume, and I was a little surprised because I always thought that he fought him, to be honest with you. But another guy, I both of these guys, I'm going to mention his name, but Ken Norton and Ron Lyle were two guys that I loved watching. I remember, you know, as a kid seeing them, climb into the ring, and they were both so physically, scary looking. Ken Norton was always in great shape, and so was Ron Lyle. They never fought each other, and that kind of surprises me, considering that that their paths should have crossed.
Yeah, it is sort of strange that they never did meet. But there was things like that, even I think in every era where you have that, especially in the heavies, like when you have, Tyson never fought James Toney, he never fought Foreman, he never fought Ray Mercer. Those were all guys I would have thought, boy, they would have bumped into each other somewhere along the line. But the thing that was interesting about him is that some of his, he wasn't all that well known. It wasn't until a sparring session with Ali that he really, because like you said, he was physically imposing. He was the consummate mesomorph, incredible physique. He had been a track and field athlete as well as, like I said, football. And his son actually became a well-known football player for, I think it was the Dallas Cowboys.
And the 49ers, but anyway. He played for both teams. He was real good, Ken Norton Jr., but Kenny Norton, his style was kind of strange too, wasn't it? He was very strong physically, and he was one of those fighters that were always well conditioned. But he was kind of an awkward style. You would have thought that he would have been a more refined fighter. I mean, especially when he's fighting one of the most refined fighters in the history of the sport, and Muhammad Ali, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Maybe that awkward style is what gave Ali some trouble.
Yes, I think that's true. I think that he was big, strong, awkward, and more importantly, and I think we've seen this in a couple of the guys lately, of the heavyweights of our current sad crop of heavyweights, that following a game plan, he could follow a strategy and stick to it. And I think that, more than anything, is what was the secret to the Ali fights. He had the physicality and the will to do it, and that constitution to really maintain that strategy and not be shaken by the guy, who could undo anyone. Ali is going to talk to you through the whole fight. He never shook Norton. He really had that kind of confidence that, like we talk about with when Holyfield had when he went in against Mike Tyson, that he just knew he would win. And part of that came from this one sparring session that he sparred. He came into the gym, and he had a contact. His contact was with Eddie Futch early in his career, which is part of what, especially after this one sparring session where he sparred with Ali in the gym, and he went 2 rounds, and he did okay. Ali beat him, but there's no winner or loser. He held his own with Ali. But it was after that he felt, wow, I'm good at this, and he had Eddie Futch in his corner, and this is from, I thought this was really great, because I think this is the thing about even today with Floyd Mayweather, where you have a guy who's a stylist and is an incredible boxer and just has forgotten things about the sport. There's still ways to beat him, and I think that Eddie Futch really spells this out. This is from the book Facing Ali by Stephen Brunt, and there's chapters in there about all different opponents that had fought and either won or lost against Ali. And in this is what Norton told, what Eddie Futch told Norton after that sparring session, and I'm going to read it. It's just a 2 paragraphs, but I think it is such a beautiful, it almost is the boxing equivalent to when they go to the telestrator and they show the X's and O's and where the play is going to, how it's going to break down and move. This is the boxing equivalent to this. This is Eddie Futch talking. I said, now when he jabs, you jab with him, Futch said. His right hand is out of position, and yours is where it should be. You will catch his jab, and he will catch your jab on the face. I said, now he's done that all his life, and so he'll continue to do it. That's a habit that he had gotten away with. He thought there was no reason to change it, boxing Ken Norton. But I saw that if he couldn't change it, he was going to get hit. When that happens, you're 2 heavyweights, and you start in the center of the ring. When you hit him with your jab because his right is out of position, he's going to step back and jab again, and you're going to do it again. That was 3 jabs now. He's against the ropes. Now, when he hits the ropes, don't do what other fighters do. Instead of going for his head, because what it'll do is lean back and make you miss, I want you to go to the body with hard body shots with both hands until he brings his hands down to protect himself against your body attack. And then you'll go to the head. And when they fought March 31st, 1973, that's what you'll see Norton do that again and again.
Yeah, well, he definitely followed directions. That was his military background, following directions. And he said some of his discipline came from the military. An interesting thing about him, when you look at his career, his first fight was in 1967. He only fought once, and he pretty much climbed the rankings. And there's really no big name that sticks out on his resume from the time he started in 1967 all the way up to 1972, prior to facing the great Muhammad Ali in 1973. And when you look at the names, let's talk about the trilogy in a sec, but when you look at the names after Ali that have been on his resume, win or loss, he lost to George Foreman, he got blown out, but Boone Kirkman, 32-3, he beat him. Jerry Quarry, a lot of people, for some reason, Jerry Quarry, a lot of people look at like he was just a punching bag, and that wasn't true. I mean, this guy was a quality fighter. He beats him. Dwayne Bobbick was undefeated at 38-0. A lot of people thought that he was the next, big superstar. He was never the same after this fight. Jimmy Young, a guy that I love, Jimmy Young, and he had a real tough go at it with him. And then, of course, the loss to Shavers and Jerry Cooney, and he beat Randall Tex Cobb. But, hey, I'm not going to, that wasn't much. But the guy fought a lot of big names, big known names today. Still, people know who these guys are. Right after that, the 2 fights with Ali.
Yeah, he definitely, that's what he said, is that fight launched him into, it changed his whole life, and it launched him into bigger paydays. Before that, he was making like $600 fights, $300 fights.
Right.
At the time, he had gone through a divorce. He was a single dad. He talks about it in one interview I was seeing on YouTube. It shows you just how much was riding on looking good in that fight. This is something that I think people talk about today, and of course, like we were saying last week about the PBC, we of course want fighters to be paid well, but when you hear things like that, it does show you that an economic motivation sometimes does bring the best, at least in history, historically speaking. Some of the greatest performances were motivated largely because of economic need. He had to win to provide for his family. And that was the fight that, of course, that there's the question, did he break Ali's jaw? There might have been a little bit of storytelling there with Angelo Dundee and Ali, that it could be that it did not. Ali's camp always said it broke in the second round, and he went to 10 rounds more with it, a broken jaw. Norton himself thinks he broke it in the last round. But whatever the case, at some point the jaw was definitely broken. It's an exciting fight, but that was one of the things that I was interested to find out, Bill, was that fight, in part, why it was on TV on prime time was because people had been kind of disappointed. It was the first network TV heavyweight championship fight in like 6.5 years, because that had been the model. The model had changed with, of course, where pay-per-view first came on the scene with like the fight of the century and everything. But the fight before it, when Ali fought I think it was Joe Bugner, was so dull, they didn't think they could sell it, a pay-per-view. So they fought on ABC. Howard Cosell did the call, and that was quite an upset for Norton. So he got into the stratosphere and did well against a lot of the big names. You're right. Ron Lyle, it's weird how they never ran into each other, but of course, he didn't do well with punchers, so maybe the Ron Lyle fight would have been a rough one. But yeah, that stoppage over Jerry Quarry, that's a big win. Big
win. But you're right. Ali fought a lot on ABC. But let's talk about those three fights. The first one in March 31st, 1973, Muhammad Ali fights Kenny Norton, and Kenny Norton wins a split decision, 12-round split decision in that fight. A lot of people argue that Kenny Norton won all three. I mean, the first two were much closer than the last fight in 1976. But a lot of people swear that Ken Norton just had Muhammad Ali's number and did well against him. And I believe that I thought that Kenny Norton should have won the first two. The third one, maybe not, but definitely the first two.
Yeah, it's interesting because everybody does have an opinion on this, and you're right. It is. He's one of the guys that some people argue he won all three.
Yeah,
won all three of them, deserved all three decisions. A lot of people say he definitely deserved the third one. That one was the biggest robbery. The first one, of course, he did win, but it was very close. The second one he lost, and Norton did. He says he kind of underestimated. He came in lighter for that fight. He came in at 205, and that could have been his error.
Overtrained maybe for the fight.
Exactly. Yeah, he had no gas late, and his punches didn't seem to do what they did in the first fight. So, and then of course the third one was a huge event. It was Yankee Stadium, and that was in 76.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's nothing to sneeze at, that's for sure. Of course, in between those fights, what's interesting and why Norton is always the Ali, Norton, Frazier, Foreman quadrilogy there, or quartet of guys, is the one of the number one examples of styles make fights. Because in between there, he had was absolutely leveled by George Foreman. I mean, if people, you want to see, this is where boxing, and this is where I think the PBC is going to have a hard time the first time this happens on their hair, when they have a brutal knockout like that. Because I'm sorry, but you watch a few of Foreman's fights, it looks almost like a snuff film. I mean, what he did to Joe Frazier was terrifying. He lifts a man off the ground with an uppercut. And against Norton, there's a point where he comes across the ring where you think he's thinking the fight might continue, and then the ref decides to stop it, and you think, whoa, I hope he doesn't start punching. He just brutal knockout. He hurts him badly at the end of the first, and then takes him out in the second. But Norton, for some reason, like you said, he matched up well with Ali, but with Foreman, not so much.
And Ernie Shavers, not so much.
Yeah, and even Cooney.
Well, that was the end.
Punchers.
That was the end of his career. But yeah, you're right. The big punchers, took him out. But he was definitely a talented fighter. He fought, still had life in him even after the third Ali fight in '76, beating Dwayne Bobbick. And then a real good fight against Jimmy Young. And then, of course, when he was awarded the WBC title, and then he fights Larry Holmes in his first defense and loses what many people say was one of the greatest heavyweight fights of all time. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, you're right, and that's one of the things that's interesting is that Ali was sort of, the fulcrum, I guess, that in a way his career tilts on, because as much as he motivated him from that sparring session early, after he became sort of disenchanted with the sport after losing that close robbery, what he thought was a robbery, and so many people echoed that same sentiment. So by the time Holmes came along, he wasn't training the way he dedicated himself. If the way he says in this the Facing Ali book, he does say that if people wanted to party, he would party and then get back to training the next day. But he did. He was engaged in one of the most incredible heavyweight championship fights, especially the modern era. And the 15th round, it's a 15-round fight, first of all, which just don't exist anymore. And that 15th round was I think it was round of the year. It's incredible. They're both spent by that time. The fight is on the table in terms of numerically on the scorecards. Holmes wins it, just rallies and really hurts Norton in that final round. And it's an incredible fight. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because that was, in a way, that was the major passing of the torch from the Ali era to the Holmes era.
Yeah, and it's funny, after that fight, that you could say that Ali's, I think that third Kenny Norton fight that he got awarded the win against was really one of his better performances as he closed out his career, because he definitely slid. You look, 2 years later, and you got, Kenny Norton fighting Larry Holmes, who, destroys Ali, and, it's a knockout, drag-out fight. But his last 6 fights, he lost 3 of them, only won 2 against obscure opposition, and had 1 draw. So it was clearly over for Kenny Norton, and he walked away. Like a lot of these guys did, he hung him up. Jerry Cooney got knocked out in 1 round, and that was it. We didn't see him inside the ring. One of the saddest things I think I saw with Kenny Norton was when he put out that first book, his autobiography, and he was up at the Hall of Fame. He was terrible. I think he had just suffered the stroke or the heart attack or something. He definitely had a bunch of illnesses before he passed. And he just... I remember looking at him, and I knew that he had been sick. And he's still a big guy, 6'3". I mean, he's still a big guy. But he just didn't have that Kenny Norton. When I think of Kenny Norton, I tell you, the 2 guys that pop into my mind when I think of, tough physiques, muscle physique, muscles on top of muscles, Kenny Norton and Ron Lyle. And when I saw him up at Canastota, I was like, oh, man, it was sad. It was sad for me to see.
Yeah, he had an incredible, like we said, he had incredible physique, and that's why Hollywood took a liking to him. And they put him in that movie Mandingo, which is loosely based, I think it's based on a novel, which is loosely based on your guy there, Tom Molyneux, a freed slave a slave who wins his freedom, who's fighting in plantation bouts, and it looks like one of those 70s movies where the black guy takes his shirt off a lot. And there might like I posted the movie poster in the chat room, and it does look like there was a lot of interracial themes. I've never seen the movie, but the 70s. I think James Mason was also in it, so he did go on to movies. But one of the reasons why you're right, he seemed so debilitated up in Canastota, because he was a regular there for a while. He had a horrible near-fatal car accident that actually did more damage to him than his entire career did.
Yeah, that started
he cracked his skull, badly broke his leg. It was a one-car accident. He lost control. he doesn't see. The problem is that he lost memory of like 3 or 4 years of his life, all the rehab. So he doesn't even remember what it was that made him swerve and go off the road. Maybe something jumped out, who knows. But broke his skull. He was nearly paralyzed, and they didn't think he would walk again. Of course he did. It took a couple of years, and that's why his speech was severely affected. In that movie Champions Forever, that documentary from the 90s, that's pretty good, that has Ali, Holmes, Foreman, Frazier, and Norton in it. You could tell his speech is affected by the car accident, and then, like you said, I believe there were subsequent strokes.
Yeah, he had prostate cancer, he had a heart attack, he had multiple heart surgeries, he suffered a couple of strokes. I mean, he had a tough go at it for a while there, and and did you see the other? You call that one Mandango, but there was a movie more recently called Fandango. Did you catch that one?
No.
That was that wasn't about him. No, it was. There was some slave fighting in there. That's what I was talking about.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was the only reference to it, other than the stuff that the research that went into my book and stuff. And it bothers me that it's not out there. That we knew it all happened, but they don't want to admit that it happened. Like all of that documentation is mysteriously missing. It bothers me. But anyway, you have to read the book to get that. But listen, I have to take a break now, so let's. I know you got your the Title Bout Championship computer game, and let's get some final thoughts on Ken Norton. But let's hold those.
We should also talk about his appearance on the A-Team.
Yeah, no. I wanted you to talk about all of the books, the movies, and he did some acting, of course, like we're talking about. So we'll close out with Kenny Norton here in a second. But first, we're going to have to take a break. So we'll be back in 2 with the conclusion of The Blast from the Past, starring Kenny Norton. We'll be right back.
Talking Boxing with Billy C. Every week, 2 hours of the best boxing talk on the radio.
I have a bunch of questions, Donnell, right? If you feel like you want to, you can answer for JD first. Why will you win? JD Chapman, why will you win?
Maybe Holmes will get sick and get hit by a train that day on the way to the fight, or he might have diarrhea, he might have the flu, he might throw up. One of his eyeballs might fall out that day, and I might get lucky.
Talking Boxing
with Billy C. If you want your voice heard on Talking Boxing with Billy C., then call our hotline at 845-228-8710. Leave a voicemail, or you could just tell Billy C. that you like his mustache.
Should I ask you your opinion about this idea?
I'm just trying to give you the encouragement.
Listen, all I need from you is to make sure you don't hang up on people.
And if we like your call, we'll play it back on the air.
You have the knowledge and wisdom of boxing because of what you do and how well you do it.
Leave your name, hometown, and what you think of the show. 845-228-8710. We want to hear you.
Hey, fight fans, check out KOFantasyBoxing.com. KO Fantasy Boxing is boxing's only trademarked fantasy game. Check it out, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Select your own gym, your own fighters, track them through a season that can last from 3 months to a year, depending upon which league you join. You got to check this out, man. www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Join it today. Again, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. And tell them Billy C. sent ya.
The one, the only, Don King.
Makes me feel good, Billy, to have you, the #1 show in the country, Talking Boxing with Billy. So I invite each and every American that's listening to this great show to tune in, because we want you to be there with Billy and me.
Broadcasting in all corners of the globe, on the web and radio.
He would scoff at a stretcher, that man, I
would think. You're listening to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. From upstate New York and the good old US of A.
Boxing is here to stay because we are here to stay.
The best 2 hours of boxing talk on the airwaves.
Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. He may not have an Excellence in Broadcasting award, but the night's still young.
And he's got martinis.
So you never know what may be by morning. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C.
Talking Boxing with Billy C.
Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C.
And we're back. You're listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C show. I want to give a shout out to our ESPN New Hampshire listeners. Glad you guys could join us. And speaking of joining me, Alex Pierpaoli is with me, and we're talking about Kenny Norton during our Blast from the Past segment. And we went a little over, which is great because, it just shows us, Alex, that, Ken Norton was one of those kinds of fighters. And, we could talk about him for a long time. Unfortunately, we don't have that much time. But tell us about, we got to the point where, he finished his career. We kind of jumped a little bit into his near-fatal auto accident and then his various illnesses that he battled up until his death. But what about his acting and commentary and all that stuff? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, he did appear in some 80s TV shows like The A-Team, for one. He played Jackhammer Jackson, who was an inmate in an episode called Pros and Cons, which I've actually caught a couple of times. I forget what channel it is. I think it may be the Esquire Network, which shows like $6 Million Man and Miami Vice and some of those old 70s and 80s TV shows. And he was also on a Knight Rider. He had some, post-boxing things. He is in that documentary Champions Forever, which I don't know if people have seen. It's from the 90s. It was really popular, I remember, when it came out. It's really good. I'll post that because it does seem like the whole thing is on YouTube.
That was when the four of them basically were sitting at a round table, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and it shows footage, and it has interviews of them together and interviews of them separately.
And Frazier still was being nasty to Ali.
Yeah, Frazier still has some right up until the end. It seemed like he did have a few issues with him, but there was still this mutual respect, and that's one of the things that is in that Stephen Brunt book, is that that was an angle that they wanted when they were trying to promote the fight for ABC to put it on the air for network TV. They were kind of thinking about doing the draft dodger versus the Marine, and Norton didn't really want to play along with that because he kind of respected Ali for his decision, and he had been proven right by the Supreme Court, or vindicated.
Kenny Norton was a successful guy in the ring, and of course he was as well as outside the ring. Not only did he have the book and acted in the movie and was doing other acting, but he had a management company that did pretty well for sports, all sports management, and it's good to hear that this guy didn't end up as bad off as some other fighters. He seemed to have made some smart moves financially in his career.
Yeah, and it does show you that one of the things that we all forget about, or at least we kind of, we're kind of cavalier about it, is the automobile is a very dangerous thing, and we all use them every single day, and I think that it does show you that in 1 second things can change dramatically, because it certainly sounds like he had a lot of medical care in that the post-accident part of his life, and there were segments of his memory that were never recovered. That's just spooky to think that, it could just be gone like that. You just don't remember what happened.
They actually did extensive looking into that accident. And when they finally were done, they said there was no signs of any kind of alcohol or drugs or anything. And it's still kind of a mystery of what caused that accident.
It could, it could be one of those things where you doze off for a second, and if he was going around a curve, that's all it took.
Well, with the subsequent, and I'm no doctor, I don't even play one on this show, but with the subsequent strokes, he could have, passed out or something, I mean, he could have had, something like that. And like you said, doze off, pass out, one little thing, one little teeny second. And, like you said, the life has changed. And unfortunately for Kenny, it was. But Ken Norton.
Crazy things that happen there's crazy things on the road all the time. There was part of the highway was closed near me this week because a tanker had rolled over and hit a bridge and burst into flame and spilled oil all over there. And it is like these one little thing will cause a cascade of tragic events.
That's
luckily most people were okay.
That's like that movie Naked Gun. O.J. Simpson, everything that happened to him, he falls, he breaks his leg, he goes down in the wheelchair, he gets shot, puts his hand on a burning stove. Yeah, you ever remember that scene? The scene with O.J.?
Yeah.
Oh God, it's funny. I guess it's not funny to talk about O.J. now, right? But anyway, hey, I'll admit he was a childhood hero, man. O.J. Simpson, one of the greatest running backs of all time. So he got mad at his girlfriend, whatever. But anyway, the Title Bout Championship computer game. I'm real curious to hear who you put Mr. Ken Norton in. I'm sure he destroyed Deontay Wilder. You had to put him in with him, right?
I did. First, because you and Dax both seem so...
Not me, that's Dax, but go ahead.
Why. I put him in there, put him in with Ruslan Chagayev, because I don't know why you guys...
Listen, I thought you were going to say Lennox.
He did look good. It was a sneaky left hand. Come on, he's got hepatitis.
Right. Listen, wait.
Happen for him.
Wait a minute. First of all, I thought
he's in line to fight Freza Kendo.
Well,
Who cares?
no. That's because of the rematch. But anyway, listen. I thought you were going to say Lennox Lewis, but Ruslan Chagayev. All I'm going to say about him is that at one time I thought that he was the best heavyweight, but this was a long time ago.
That time is a long time ago.
Right. It was before he fought Klitschko, and then when he fought Klitschko. That was it. The guy, he's been nothing the same, But anyway, I wanted that for the record, And yes, he's got hepatitis, damn it. That's why he doesn't leave Germany anymore and Russia, because he's not allowed to fight here in the States. But anyway.
Okay, I did put hepatitis in against Kenny Norton, just for the hell of it, because he did win this week, and, it was a nice knockout. He beat Francisco Pianetta, who was a guy who Vlad Klitschko defeated recently, who was grossly overmatched in that fight, and he was pretty grossly overmatched against Chagayev. But Norton beats Chagayev by TKO. Chagayev wins by TKO off a cut caused by a punch in the fifth, and in the seventh. Norton actually scored a knockdown off a big uppercut. But the next round, Chagayev has that cut bleeding so badly, he stops Norton. When I had them fight 100 times, Ken Norton dominates him. He wins 64, loses 32. They drew 4 times. He stops Chagayev 30 times. Of hepatitis's 32 wins, 22 were KOs. And then I had him in against Deontay Wilder, yes. And he did very well. The first time they fought, I thought, this would have been a really fun fight to watch. Wilder drops Norton in the first. He dropped him again in the third. And then Norton puts Wilder down in the fourth and away at 1 minute 51 seconds of round number 4 by TKO. And then out of 100 bouts, he dominates Deontay Wilder, stops him 88 times. He wins 88 fights, loses 12. 85 of those wins are by knockout. And of Wilder's 12 victories, 10 are by knockout. And then against the big man himself, I put him in against Vladimir Klitschko. And Norton won off a huge right hand at the end of round 4. It must have stopped after the round ended, like he hit him in the final seconds, and it was past the 3-minute mark. Then when they fight 100 times, Kenny Norton dominates. 60 wins, 37 defeats, 3 draws, 51 knockouts scored over Vlad Klitschko, and of Vlad's 37 wins, he did stop Norton 33 times. So he would go down fighting. He's gonna go out. If he's gonna win, it's mostly gonna be by knockout. But yeah, so as expected, he would dominate today's crop of heavyweights, and he was the 4th best in the 70s.
Yeah, no doubt. Kenny Norton had a career record, 42 wins, 33 coming by knockout. He lost 7 times in which he was stopped 4. He had a draw. He stood 6'3" when he fought, had an 80-inch reach. And by the way, 6'3" is, I believe, the same size as Muhammad Ali. Maybe Ali is 6'4", but he had a 314 rounds as a professional with a 66% knockout ratio. He was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1992. Ken Norton, our blast from the past this week. Great job, as usual, Alex. And Ken Norton was always one of my favorite fighters, especially, I guess, because I got to watch him on TV, and it was plentiful back in those days. But
you like that crab style?
The crab style,
like Archie Moore crab type style.
Yeah, I don't know. I like engaging fighters. Fighters that want to fight. I think when you look at the whole idea behind this sport, you need to engage at some point. Somebody said to me, oh, well, you can't stand Floyd Mayweather, but, Muhammad Ali fought just like Floyd Mayweather. He used the ring, he used his feet, but that's so not true. Muhammad Ali, yes, he boxed and danced and used his arm reach and his hand speed, et cetera, but he engaged quite a bit, as a matter of fact. And when he did come and land those punches, he would throw 3 and 4 and 5 punch combinations, unlike the guys like Floyd Mayweather and what we saw from Keith Thurman the other night, which we'll get to. But anyway, let's wrap up the Kenny Norton thing. Great job, as usual, with that, Alex. So I appreciate that, and we'll look forward to the next time. Speaking